Hello guys, 2009 Volvo XC60, and we are doing axle seals, rear axle seals, and I'll show you how to take all this apart on the other side, but I just wanted to show you the driver's side seal and how it sits. So basically you can see that it's probably 1 up to 2 millimeters deeper in the case. It's not flush all the way, so just wanted to make sure that you see that, because on the other side it might be slightly different, and I will show entire procedure on the other side. So next, probably why everyone is looking for the information, the seals. So here's the Volvo seal number, and that's 8653928, and they are roughly like $30, but at the same time there are different options aftermarket, roughly $5, though it's kind of tricky to go without the exact part number, since when that axle is out you want to have the seal. So I ordered it from Volvo, waited a bit, waited long to be honest, but I'll show you the rough sizes, so when you search aftermarket you can compare. So you can see that outside diameter is 55 millimeters, so the inside is 34.3, so roughly 34 millimeters, and it's 10 millimeters thick. So that's the sizes. So to be quite honest, now when I see, I think the ones that I was able to find on Rock Auto, it looked quite similar, and it was way cheaper than this one. Anyway, let's get back to installation. Alright, to remove the seal, I don't have actual seal puller, so I'm just using a regular pry bar, and the longer the better. Also, we have drained, like we did have not drained, but we opened the fill plug and nothing came out. Kind of expected, since those seals were leaking, and that's the reason why we are replacing them. And it's out. Obviously, before you remove the seal, you make sure that the shell is all clean around, so when you pull the seal and install a new one, no jamming gets in. To get the seal in, we are using 1 5/8 deep socket, so it fits nicely inside, just like that. So I will probably need to stick my head over there, but we will put it in and then hammer it until the socket hits the shell of the diff. Alright, so the new seal is in. When using socket, I was able to get it flush with the case, and then just use like a small punch like this to push it another millimeter inside. So now we will get the axle washed. It's quite dirty and greasy. Put some diff oil on it and slide it in. Alright, so this is the driver's side axle, and this one is a little bit tricky to remove because it says it's in this housing. So first I tried, use different pry bars, grab by this lip, actually by this lip, and try to pry it out. Spend a little bit of time, did not work out. So then what I end up doing, just using this lip, pry bar and a hammer. So it took probably like 5, maybe 6 hits, and I was spinning. So it hit one point, it didn't came out, spin it, hit another point, hit another point. So it was not super easy to remove. The prying itself did not work out, but hammering with the hammer worked much better. And from my experience, usually like those axles are locked with this ring, and it needs to collapse to get it out. So when you prying, it's not as effective as you hit. So try to use a hammer and get it out quickly. Okay, since we will be changing oil, we have Castrol Syntrex limited slip 75W90. So we'll just put a tiny bit on the shaft, on the axle where the seal will sit, so it's not dry when we insert it, and it goes in much smoother without damaging the seal. The seal has a little bit of grease on it already, so some extra oil will not hurt, but probably will help. Alright, so you should be ready to get it in. Just be careful not to damage the seal. So it feels like it's engaged and feels like it's in. So it went in way easier than it came out. Alright, so even though I will do a full video on the other side, but just a quick recap what was removed here. So obviously you need to remove the axle, and to remove the axle we have disconnected the shock, we have disconnected this switch, limit switch or sensor for the suspension, 2 bolts. Also we have removed the spring, and it's not attached up to anything, it just slides out. So this lower arm goes down all the way, and you can install the spring. So we have removed sway bar link. Also important, so here is the ABS sensor, and this is magnetic ring over here. So you want to make sure that you remove the sensor before you pull the axle out, because there's a big chance that you will damage it when you're removing it. So to pull the plug out, just one tap. So there's a, I think it's 10 mil bolt that holds it in place. So remove your plug, remove your bolt, spray it with WD-40, put the plug back in and pull it out, the easiest way to get it out. And also we have removed the upper control arm, and then this all just swivels out. So yeah, I will put this, oh, and I guess the axle, there is a bolt that holds axle in place. So I'll put this back together and we'll capture the video how I disassemble it on the other side. Alright, so we are on the passenger side now. We will start removing the axle. So first we need to remove the 13 mil bolt that holds the axle in a hub. Let's do that. Now we can see there is some Loctite on this bolt, so we will put it back. So now what I would like to do is just to grab 15 mil socket and make sure that the axle is freed out. So it moved. Next, what we will do, we will remove this ABS sensor plug. And over there is the Torx screw. So the screw is removed. So now we have already sprayed everything with WD-40. Now we will put the plug back and wiggle out the sensor and grab our screw. Just fall over there. So we can put this aside. Next, what we will do, we will remove the link to that level switch, level sensor. So there are two 10mm nuts, so it's free, and when we move all these parts, we don't damage it or do not go over the limit. Okay, so that link is free now. So to get it out all the way, we'll need to remove the shock first. So next, what we will do, we will disconnect this sway bar link. It's 15mm nut and 15mm nut and 5mm Allen key to go inside and hold. So you can try gently with the impact, but most of the time it will start spinning, so be careful not to damage the boot. We'll just pry it out to make sure that it's disengaged. If you don't want to fight with it, you can remove this nut too and remove the link entirely. Okay, so next what we will do, we'll probably just go ahead and remove the shock. So here is your shock, and that's 18mm. The nut on the other side is welded, so you don't need to worry about that. I'll just get impact and get this out. So here's the bolt out of the shock, also some Loctite on it. Now our shock is loose, so we should be able to remove that level switch link. Okay, so now this is loose. Put it aside so it's disengaged. Next, what you want to do on the shock, there are those clips holding the wire to the shock. Get them loose, because there will be a point where you will be moving things, so you want to have some slack. So next, what we will do, probably we'll remove this bolt that holds the lower control arm with the spring. So we'll get this out. So here's this bolt out of here, that was 15mm. So now we should be able to go ahead and remove this last bolt, 15mm too, from upper control arm. So this bolt is out. Okay, so next we will try to get this all loose and disengaged from the lower control arm and upper. So there is the spring, it's mostly expanded. It might drop a little bit, so we'll just start with the upper. So this is off, and now we need to disengage it from the lower. And why you need to do it, you need to spin this hub out a little bit. Smaller pry bar. so that is free. At this point, it's probably a good idea to remove the spring. You press it down, it's not attached anywhere. One thing, when you put it back, make sure that this end finds the right spot. On the bottom control arm. So this is removed. So now we will just maybe use another time 15mm socket to get our axle out. Sway Berlin got engaged. That's why I said it might be a good idea to remove it completely. So we pull this axle out, make sure that there's no wires holding. Okay, so the axle is out. Next, what we want to do to tie this axle to the upper control arm, just with the wire, so it's straight, and when you remove it from the diff, it's not hitting anything and not resisting you. So this should be just fine. There's still plenty of room over here, so you don't want to get it super tight. You want it to be able to move. So at this point we should be good to get under the car and pry that axle out. Alright, so here's our axle, and we already have opened the fill plug. There was nothing leaking out, and when we removed the right axle or left axle, nothing was slipping, so we don't worry about that. So right now, to remove, we will try to use just a pry bar and pry it out. If this does not work, we might need to use the same technique as on the other side. Basically grab a hammer, grab a pry bar and hammer that out. So I will try to get that done. There is not enough room to capture the video, so I will get it out and let you know what was the easiest way. Alright, so similar as it was the previous axle, the easiest way was to hammer it out. So you can see that big hammer and the pry bar. So 2 good hits and it's out. Okay, nice and greasy. So basically, you can see, use this this side to hit against, and actually it was just one spot, it came out quite easily. So one thing that I should have done before, to clean the area around the seal. So right now we'll just put some paper towel inside so nothing gets in, and wash it all the way around, and also we'll get the axle washed. Alright, so now when the area around the seal is clean, we'll get the seal out, same seal as on the other side, and we'll try to use same technique, just regular pry bar, go behind the seal and get it out. So now we will do a little bit of more cleaning inside. You can see there's still that greasy lip over there. So we'll clean that up and we'll get the seal in. Alright, so same as on the other side, to get the seal in we're using 1 5/8" socket. So the seal fits nicely inside the socket. So we will push it all the way in until the socket hits the shell, and then similar as on the other side, just roughly 1 millimeter deeper inside with the punch. Alright, so here's our cleaned axle, And one thing you want to pay attention here is this mirror surface where the seal gets in contact with the axle, and you can see there's like shiny spot where it was grinding, but it's nice and clean. There is no rust, there is no any damage. The surface is nice and smooth. Most of the time, if it's bad, you want to replace axle. If it's not too bad, you might take like 600 grade, 800 grade sandpaper and smooth it out. But this one is nice, so all what we will do, just put some diff oil, get it nice and greasy, so when it goes through the seal first time, it does not damage it, and also it nicely goes into the gears inside. Okay, let's get it installed. So as you can see, the seal is all the way in, as it's supposed to be. So now we will feed the axle, and when you put it through, make sure that you do not damage the seal, so you want to touch seal as less as possible. So then you want to find where it goes into those plies, so it's in. So now like that, and we are in. All right, so now what I would like to do before we put the axle back, I have chiseled a little bit of this rust, since this is the magnetic ring over here that sends basically the signal to the ABS sensor. So I chiseled the rust around a bit. So now I'll put some anti-seize on the end of the axle, so it's nice and smooth next time when somebody is removing it. I'll just use some anti-seize over here, and we will get axle back in. So this is all loose. So I want to get it started, and then basically to get that axle bolt started. So we'll use some Loctite, blue one. Not far enough. Good. So the bolt is started. So now we can start assembling this wheel hub back. So first of all, we need to put the spring back. So when you put the spring back, the main thing is to make sure that it sits properly in here, and it is in line with the frame over here. So now what we can do, we'll probably use a smaller bottle jack, and we will get this lower arm in place. So we have a little bottle jack underneath the compressor, will be kind of lining up better and better. So now you can see that the lower arm is getting to the right spot. So we'll lift it a bit more. So now it's getting close. So we will use the original bolt, put some Loctite and kind of get it centered. So we need to go a little bit more up. Okay, so that's where you want to be at this point. So next we will do upper control arm using the same bolt. Put some Loctite. Actually, where it's getting rusty, we'll just put some anti-seize. So get this in. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see it clearly, but this control arm, it's kind of in this angle, so when we lift our assembly up, it will get lined up better with the upper control arm. So we will go up, compress that spring, and we will try now. So this is already much better. Well, we can use a hammer to get it closer. Use a punch to line up the holes. Okay, that's close enough. Okay, so now just a game of finding the right angle with the bolt and make sure that it's lined up with the nut, same on top and on the bottom. And the jack will be held here because we can go up, it will help to line up a bit. So just watching from the nut side where the bolt is coming to, we can do that adjustment and get those bolts threaded into the nut. Alright, so I have already done the bottom one. Basically you need to lift this assembly quite up so the holes in the arms line up with the holes in the hub. And how those nuts and bolts are made, so just by hammering, if you can see, it goes like almost halfway into the nut, and now you can start wrenching. So you can see there's this flat spot on the bolt, so it's designed so you can hammer it in and get it aligned with the nut. So next what we will do, we will put our ABS sensors in. Just remove it from the harness. Also a good idea to put some anti-seize on those, since they are plastic and when the metal rusts, sometimes they get really stuck, so you cannot remove them. So by applying some anti-seize might help to prevent issue in the future. So also at the same point we will put the screw so it's easy to get it in. So place it inside just like that, and now use Torx, and I will let you know what size in a second. T25 Torx to get it. Screwed. Now the harness. So now we have the shock to do, but before the shock and sway bar link. But before we do that, so to do the shock and sway bar link, obviously we need to lower down the entire assembly since the other wheel is lowered. So, but before we do that, we need to get that level switch back in, and before we got it in, we'll put some anti-seize. Those bolts are getting rusted. So now we will slide it in the frame, and this step has to be done before the shock. The shock won't allow you to do that. Okay, so I will get those screwed. Okay, so now the last thing is to attach the sway bar link, and don't get it pinched over here. So you want to get it out of the way and start lowering down the assembly. So just let it go, and when it's in the right spot, we will just stop the jack. Okay, so it's in. Put some anti-seize on. Get that nut back in. And just a reminder, it's 15 mil nut and 5 mil Allen key. So this is done. Last thing to do is attach our shock. So similar as we did before, we'll put some Loctite at the front and some anti-seize on the back, so you don't want those get stuck there. Next time you need to remove them. Okay, so I will get that done. Alright, so the next step will be to replace the fluid in a diff, and there is no drain plug. What a smart idea, hey? So we'll be using a little transfer pump, battery powered. We will be pumping into container where we can see the level. I just need to know how much I got out. Probably will be looking somewhere at least half a liter. Considering that this diff was not full as it was leaking, maybe it will be less. But yeah, like right now when I start the pump, the matter will be just taking this line and feeding it in different directions to get as much fluid as we can. So we'll just get it started. Oh, the battery is dead. So we are pumping the fluid. now basically I will just get under the vehicle and will be filling that line into every possible spot to get as much fluid as I can. Alright, so we got roughly 650 milliliters of fluid out of the diff. So now we will switch the pump direction and we'll be pumping out of this bottle into the diff. And the level will be just above the fill plug. So as soon as fluid starts to drip off, we will stop pumping. Alright, so the fluid started to drip out, so I have stopped the pump. Let's check how much fluid it took. So we are left with roughly 150 ml, and there was 950 basically, so it took 800 ml, while we removed 650, so 150 ml was missing. Okay, so last thing we need to do is to clean the fill plug, and you can see all this dirt, but it's not too bad. There is nothing major, no big shavings. So we'll clean this out, get it installed, put the wheels back, and it will be ready to go. Alright, so now we will tie the axle nut, and that's 33 foot-pounds. Okay, should be good here.